Welcome back, learner, to another deep dive. Let me ask you a question. What if the reason you feel so exhausted on your day off isn't because you worked too hard this week, but because you are literally addicted to your own freedom?
Which sounds crazy, right?
Right. I mean, think about it. Usually when we picture relaxation, there's this expectation of profound relief.
Yeah.
You finish your shift, you close the laptop, you sit on the couch, and the stress is just supposed to evaporate.
But it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. You look at the modern landscape of leisure, and that downtime leaves us feeling, honestly, utterly drained. Like your body is on the sofa, but your brain feels like it's vibrating at 1,000 miles an hour.
It's really the defining paradox of our era. We're supposedly resting, but our cognitive engine is just, well, it's redlining. We've built this society where the boundary between labor and leisure hasn't just blurred, it's completely collapsed.
Yeah, and our mission today is to figure out why. We are going to explore why you might feel constantly overwhelmed and burnt out, even when you're, actively trying to do nothing.
Which is a lot of us, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And to build this picture, we have an incredible stack of sources today. We're synthesizing a philosophical thesis, analyzing Byung-Chul Han's concept of the burnout society.
A really heavy hitter, that one.
Yeah, super dense but fascinating. We've also got a psychological paper exploring the cognitive habits of digital natives and a revealing sociological study on the precariat class in Poland.
We're covering a lot of ground.
We really are. We're going to connect the dots between your phone screen, your deepest philosophies of success, and, well, the global economy. Okay, let's unpack this.
So to truly understand this cultural exhaustion, we really have to start at the physical surface of the problem.
Right. The hardware.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to look at the literal mechanical way we interact with information every single day. And for the vast majority of us, that entire interaction is, it's mediated through a pane of glass.
The screen. Which brings us to that psychology paper by Romero and Timena. They dive deep into the daily habits of what they call the digital native. And that's a term originally coined by Mark Prensky back in 2001, just to describe a generation that's grown up completely immersed in digital tech from birth.
Right, they've never known a world without it.
Exactly. And the researchers make a really compelling case that for digital natives, staring at a screen isn't just like a bad habit. The constant immersion is actively and fundamentally reshaping human cognition.
What's fascinating here is the specific neurological framework the researchers use to map this out. Because they don't just look at screen time as a monolith.
I had to break it down.
Yeah, they focus on the microactions, the continuous scrolling and clicking. And on the surface, this behavior feels incredibly productive.
Oh, it feels great.
Right, you're retrieving information at lightning speed. You scan a news headline, jump to a social media feed, click a 2-minute video, swipe to a text message.
It feels like ultimate efficiency.
Exactly. But neurologically, it is generating an unsustainable amount of what psychologists call cognitive load.
It's like having 50 tabs open in your brain's browser and the RAM is just maxed out.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it.
Like you're trying to listen to a symphony, but someone keeps changing the radio station every 3 seconds. You're hearing a ton of different music, but you aren't actually comprehending any of the songs.
You're processing the noise, but you're never grasping the melody.
Yes. The brain's RAM is maxed out just trying to identify the new station before it changes again.
Spot on. Because every time you switch tasks, every time you click a new tab or swipe to a new video, your brain has to orient itself to a completely new context.
And that takes energy.
It takes a huge amount of energy. Over hours of continuous scrolling, this constant task switching actively impairs the brain's executive function. It basically destroys your ability to filter out irrelevant information.
Leaving you with a highly fragmented attention span.
Exactly. Your brain just gets stuck in this state of high alert scanning.
Okay, but let me push back on this for a second. Because if the problem is just the physical act of swiping, the cognitive load of the screen, isn't this just a tech problem?
You'd think so.
Like, if we just put the phones in a drawer at 6 p.m., set some strict screen time limits, and walked away, wouldn't we be totally fine? Wouldn't the exhaustion just vanish?
It sounds logical, but the research suggests the technology is merely the vehicle for a much deeper compulsion.
Meaning what, exactly?
Well, yes, the infinite scroll physically consumes the time and space required for critical thinking. When you're instantly gratified by the next post, You eliminate the friction that deep reflection actually requires.
Right.
But think about that burning anxiety you feel when you try to leave the phone in the drawer.
Oh, the FOMO, the twitch.
Right, the twitch. The reason you feel compelled to constantly consume bite-sized data even when you know it's making you tired, that points to a profound societal shift.
So it's not just the algorithm.
No, it is not just an algorithmic trap, it's a philosophical one. Society has completely rewritten our psychological definition of success.
Wow. Okay, so the compulsion to keep swiping is actually a symptom of how we view our own value.
Exactly.
And that perfectly sets up our second source, which is the thesis by Andrew White analyzing the work of the philosopher Byung-Chul Han.
Yes, this is where it gets really deep.
Han argues that over the last few decades, we have quietly transitioned from what Michel Foucault called a disciplinary society into something Han calls the achievement society.
And understanding the distinction between those two societal models is really the key to understanding modern burnout.
Let's break that down for the learner.
So Foucault's disciplinary society was governed by the negativity of you should or you must not.
Okay.
It was a world of external rules, rigid boundaries, overt obedience. You had a factory boss or a headmaster or an institution explicitly telling you what to do.
And if you broke the rules, you were punished.
Exactly. Your relationship to power was clear. Power was outside of you, forcing you to comply.
But the achievement society operates on a completely different frequency.
Totally different.
It's governed by the positivity of the modal verb, you can. It's characterized by unbounded potential, relentless self-optimization, and this constant pressure to be your absolute best self.
Right. It strips away external boss telling you you must and replaces it with an internal voice whispering, you can do more.
Which sounds great.
It sounds like liberation, right? It sounds like the ultimate form of personal freedom.
Wait, so you're saying my desire to, say, listen to a self-improvement audiobook on my commute, or optimize my morning workout, or learn a new language on the weekends, that's actually a trap.
According to Han, yes.
Because you can sounds incredibly empowering. How does an empowering philosophy lead to mass exhaustion?
Because it introduces what Han calls the violence of positivity.
The violence of positivity.
Right. This is a crucial paradigm shift. Historically, exhaustion or illness came from fighting off a threat from the outside. Think of it like a viral infection.
Okay, like catching a cold.
Exactly. A virus enters your body, your immune system recognizes it as the other, right, as the foreign invader, and it mounts a violent defense to destroy it.
It fights back.
Right. Foucault's disciplinary society worked like that. You recognize the tyrannical boss as the other, and you could mentally resist them. You could push back.
You could hate the boss.
Yes. But today's burnout, Han argues, is non-immunological. It's an infarction.
Like a heart attack.
Basically, yeah. It's a blockage or a system failure caused by too much positivity. Too much of the same.
Let me make sure I'm getting this. Because my brain can't recognize self-improvement as a threat, it doesn't fight back.
That is the exact mechanism.
Wow.
When the threat is just more of yourself, more achievement, more fitness goals, more side hustles, more productivity hacks, there is no immune response.
Because you think you're doing a good thing.
Exactly. Your psyche doesn't fight the pressure because the pressure looks like a virtue. You're just accumulating and saturating yourself with positive goals until your psychological system literally overheats and collapses under its own weight.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Han takes this concept of positive accumulation to its darkest, most logical conclusion.
He really does.
He says that in the achievement society, we don't have masters anymore. Instead, every single person is simultaneously their own master and their own slave.
It's a brutal realization.
We voluntarily exploit ourselves. And we do it out of a feeling of compulsive freedom. We push ourselves to the absolute brink of sanity because we genuinely believe we're doing it for our own self-realization.
We essentially carry the labor camp inside our own heads.
That is just wild.
It's a devastating critique. And Han labels this dynamic as smart power or psychopolitics.
Psychopolitics.
Yeah. It is the most brilliant, invisible form of control ever invented. Because you feel free, because you are the one choosing to set your alarm for 5 a.m. to optimize your morning routine, you never rebel against the system when you're exhausted.
You can't strike against yourself.
Right. Think about the disciplinary society. If a factory boss forced you to work 80 hours a week, you'd form a union and protest. You'd be angry.
Absolutely.
But when you force yourself to work 80 hours a week for your personal brand or your startup, where does the anger go?
Inward.
You just blame yourself when you fail. You look in the mirror and think, I must not be resilient enough. I must not want it badly enough.
And that internalized sense of failure leads straight to depression and burnout.
Exactly.
But hold on, I have to step in here.
Go for it.
Because Han's theory is incredibly sweeping. I mean, it paints this totalizing picture of the modern white-collar worker as a narcissistic, self-exploiting achievement machine.
It's a very specific demographic he's describing, yeah.
Right. Does this achievement subject framework really apply to everyone?
Mhm.
It feels like it completely ignores the realities of someone working 3 minimum wage jobs just to keep the lights on.
Or care worker.
Exactly. An underpaid nurse or a public school teacher, they aren't burning out because they're trying to optimize their personal brand on LinkedIn. They're burning out because they're keeping people alive.
That is a vital critique. And it's the exact counter-argument brought up by Pascal Chabot, a philosopher heavily cited in White's thesis.
Okay.
Chabot argues that Han's theory has a massive blind spot. It fails to distinguish between two fundamentally different domains of human advancement.
Which are?
He categorizes these as useful progress and subtle progress.
Okay, let's break those down. Useful progress sounds like, well, stuff that gets measured in a quarterly earnings report.
That is a great summary.
Oh.
Useful progress is the domain of science, technology, economics, building tangible infrastructure. It is the realm of capitalism.
Building things.
Building things. And the key feature of useful progress is that it compounds.
Meaning?
When an engineer develops a new microchip, the next generation of engineers doesn't have to reinvent it, right? They just build a faster one on top of the old one. It scales infinitely.
Right, so useful progress is engineering the smartphone, but subtle progress is the maintenance of human life.
Exactly. Subtle progress encompasses reproduction,
Yeah.
maintenance, teaching, caring, healthcare. It's the essential, invisible work that keeps the human species functioning on a daily basis.
Okay, so subtle progress is a teacher patiently sitting with a child, teaching them how to read.
Yes.
And the crucial difference is that reading comprehension doesn't compound across generations. Like, you can't mass produce empathy in a factory.
No, you can't.
A child cannot genetically inherit the ability to read from their parents' DNA. That teacher has to start from absolute scratch, page by page, with every single human being that's born.
Which takes time.
It takes slow, inefficient, subtle work every single time.
And this is where the friction creates exhaustion. Chabot points out that burnout is historically the highest in these caring professions.
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
Because the aggressive, fast-paced, highly optimized demands of useful progress are completely crushing the fragile, time-consuming realm of subtle progress.
You simply cannot optimize human development the way you optimize a global supply chain.
You really can't. When a hospital tries to run its nursing staff with the same lean efficiency metrics as a car manufacturing plant, the nurses burn out.
It also highlights a massive structural inequality that Han's theory glides right over. Historically and currently, women are vastly overrepresented in the unpaid or underfunded domain of subtle progress.
The gender dynamic is impossible to ignore here. Han's theory assumes a level playing field where everyone's primary struggle is internal self-actualization.
Which is a privilege.
It is. Chabot brings us back to earth. Care workers are not burning out from compulsive freedom. They are burning out from the crushing structural weight of trying to maintain human life in an economic system that only rewards the aggressive metrics of useful progress.
The clash between the demands of the economy and the reality of human maintenance forces us to look at the actual material conditions people are trying to survive in today.
The economic reality.
Yes. It isn't just a philosophical feeling of being overwhelmed. It's a deliberate economic design. And that transitions us perfectly into our third source, the sociological study by Suba and Muster on the rise of the precariat in Poland.
Right. And before we delve into the numbers from this study, it's worth noting for the learner that these findings touch on some pretty heavily polarized debates.
Yeah, we're talking about neoliberalism, deregulation, left-wing versus right-wing labor policies.
Exactly. And looking strictly at the data these researchers gathered without taking any political stance on the policies themselves, right?
Right, we are just impartially reporting the facts here.
The numbers out of Poland paint a really stark empirical picture of this generation's material reality.
Looking at the data impartially, the Polish study focuses heavily on Generation Y and defines this growing socioeconomic class known as the precariat. Now, it's important to clarify that the precariat isn't just a polite academic synonym for poor people.
No, it's much more specific than that.
Right. The researchers define it as a class living with profound systemic instability. They outline a lack of 7 specific types of security. We're talking about a lack of labor market security, no income security,